I don't like overly difficult games. A statement you wouldn't expect from a channel that 100% games. You see, for years, I struggled with my anger. So, I've avoided games like Dark Souls, partially out of fear and partially for the safety of my controllers. But part of life is facing your fears and rising to the challenge. So, I loaded up what the internet has dubbed Baby's First Dark Souls, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which taught me a powerful lesson in failure. I started my first journey in December of 2020. I always loved Star Wars, so I was eager to begin my adventure in the galaxy far, far away. I got through the first 2 planets and unlocked 3 achievements, 2 for the story and 1 for customizing my lightsaber. Then I made the mistake of going to Dathomir, which, if you don't know, is the homeworld of Darth Maul, which makes a lot of sense as the planet is brutally difficult. I was doing alright through the other planets, but I could barely even make it past the first enemy. And if I did, I was so low on health, I wasn't getting much further. The difficulty spike really put me off the rest of the game. Now, part of the reason for that is, you're not actually supposed to go to Dathomir at this point in the game. It's meant to show you exactly how far you'll need to go. But by the time I realized that and went to Zepho, I was completely burned out. While I did make some progress and got an achievement for deflecting blaster bolts, I was still dying a ton and just got frustrated. So I put my rattle down and started playing an easier game. If you're ever wondering why there's weeks between uploads, well, I have a full-time job. So if you could like the video, I'd really appreciate it. These videos take a lot of work, and your likes go a long way. But like I said, I work full-time, and there's this guy at work who, about every 2 days, tells me, hey, you should go back and finish Jedi Fallen Order. So eventually, I just gave in. Not only to stop him from saying it, but to see if I could actually do this. After all, I walked away once before, and let's just say I'm not the best at these types of games. But that's what this channel is about, facing a challenge and rising to it. So, I started a new game on the Jedi Knight difficulty. Now, I know, I literally said that this is about me rising to the challenge, and then I go and pick the easiest difficulty. But honestly, I was worried about even beating this game, never mind 100%ing it. So, once again, I started my adventure and got back to Zepho. While this was easier than I remembered it, it was also about as hard as I remembered it, especially the space goats. But I muscled through it, finishing the first tomb for my first achievement back. Then I was off to Kashyyyk, where I upgraded BD-8 and got him to kill an enemy with a hack droid for another achievement. After that, I liberated the Wookiees for another achievement, and then went back to Zepho. While I was there, I knocked out some of the more combat-focused achievements, like pushing 25 enemies off a cliff, kicking an enemy to death, and the best achievement in the whole game, kicking back a space goat that kicked you. Now, I understand that these achievements exist in order to force you to master all of your different attacks, which works with things like parries because you'll naturally unlock those anyway. But for ones like Empowered Slow, it literally came down to me just finding an area to grind and reloading a checkpoint, which, while efficient, isn't exactly what I'd call fun. But part of 100% in games is the grind, so I grinded. Eventually, I got through the second tomb in Zepho for my 13th achievement. So I was a third of the way there, but the easy part was over. After a brief stop in the Space Coliseum, it was back to Kashyyyk, where I threw a trooper into another one for the bank shot achievement. Now, the second trip to Kashyyyk is where this game starts to get noticeably more difficult. I was already struggling between the space spiders and the ram slugs, but when I got to the 9th sister, I got my clock cleaned. But every time I lost, I got a little bit better, and eventually I got through her for another achievement and a huge sigh of relief. After that, I found an area to grind precision evades and pulled a Kylo Ren for another 2 achievements. That's when I ran into the bounty hunters, who surprised me on the way back to the ship and took me out. This was humbling. Even though I had just beaten the 9th sister, it didn't mean I was invincible. I would always need to be on my guard, especially now that I was heading back to Dathomir. But I had come a long way since Braca. I knew I could do this. And even though I still died, I got further and further each time. And with every section I cleared, my confidence grew. Eventually, I pulled my way out of the pit and into my next boss battle. While difficult, it wasn't as bad as the 9th sister. I still died, but I learned his patterns, dodged, and struck when the time was right, earning me another achievement and my way off Dathomir for now, because Cal had failed in his quest, or so he thought. Then the game drops this nugget of wisdom.
Failure is not the end. It is a necessary part of the path. Hope will always survive in those who continue to fight.
This is what I'd been missing. I really wasn't afraid of losing my temper. I was afraid of failure. In truth, I always have been. And that fear prevented me from doing things that I might not succeed in. Not just in what games I played, but in my own life. I needed to embrace that failure was an opportunity to learn and to keep picking myself up and trying again and again and again. Because it's when you stop trying that you fail. And that's the whole point of Dathomir and Soulsborne games. That if you embrace your failures and learn from them, you can grow. Now you tell me games aren't art. So with that profound realization, a new lightsaber, and an achievement to go along with it, I escaped the planet. While doing so, I earned another 2 combat achievements. After that, I made a brief stop in Bogano to recruit a new crew member, and got off a space lizard's tongue for another achievement. Then, it was time for Cal to face his fear and his failure in Dathomir. I made my way back to the tomb where Terran Malicos was waiting for me. This would put my newfound conviction to the test, as Malicos wasn't going to give me an inch. I had to be aggressive, but I also had to know when it was time to run. I had to accept the many failures I was enduring, using the knowledge gained from them to turn those lessons into a victory, which through time, patience, and persistence, I did, earning me another achievement and another crew member, which also earned me an achievement. But we weren't done yet. I still had a holocron to get and a galaxy to save. I was finally feeling ready to take on the mysterious creatures, which are basically optional bosses. I had already taken out the one in Zepho on my last trip. This left 3 more to go, and I started in Dathomir, right after taking out Malicos. After all, why couldn't I do this? So, while I died a couple of times, I got through it. This would be worth it, as I unlocked not only another stim, which means more health, but a costume which I could use to unlock the full glow up achievement for fully customizing everything. After that, I went on a galaxy-wide road trip to take out the mysterious creatures. While I was doing that, I popped an achievement for beating every type of bounty hunter, finding 75 Force Echoes, which are just collectibles, exploring the Crash Venator, which earned me another stim as well. And finally, I grinded the Big Bang achievement for killing 20 enemies with explosives. But with that done, I had only 9 achievements to go, most of which were left to the endgame. So it was time to return to the vault and face my destiny. Once I did that, I faced off with the second sister Trilla for the 3rd time with a newfound confidence. I was ready for this fight. After all, I was stronger than I've ever been. While that fight was cut short, I knew that when we crossed blades for the last time, it wouldn't be a cakewalk. But I had to get to her first, and that meant going through Inquisitor headquarters. The only real challenge was the second to last room where the Empire throws literally everything it has at you. And I struggled, barely making it out of there. Like Dathomir, this game is not only testing me, but showing me through my own actions how far I've come as a player. But I knew the real test would be Trilla. I'd spoken to my friend's little brother who said this fight made him put down the game altogether. So I was a bit nervous, but I wasn't giving up. It was time to show how much I've learned and how far I've come. And I got slaughtered. Over and over again. Trilla hit harder than anything I've faced thus far, and would punish any mistake I made. But I knew that every attack she landed was something I could avoid in the future, and that even if I was low on health, it wasn't over until I wasn't standing. Which is how I beat her. Both of us were low on health. I couldn't take another hit, but I saw my opening and went for it. And I had finally beat Trilla, which brought me to him. Luckily, I couldn't fail at this point, as the game would just reload after Trilla, which happened because, as I said, I could only take 1 hit. But I escaped Vader and got the holocron back, earning 2 achievements, and that was it. I had beaten baby's first Dark Souls, which definitely doesn't make me a Soulsborne player, but gave me a valuable perspective. I realized that the reason people play these games is that feeling of accomplishment, of finally getting through a challenge. That empowerment they feel from steadily improving until what was once impossible becomes child's play. That struggle and failure is an important part of the journey, in life and in gaming. And of course, that's never over until you say it's over. But I wasn't done yet. I still had 5 more achievements to get, and while the hard part was done, the annoying part had only just begun. I'm obviously an achievement hunter. Part of what I get out of them is a sense of finality, like reading a book to the last page and finally getting to put it down. Now, often with gaming, this means doing things I don't necessarily want to do. The rest of these achievements were collectibles, meaning I would basically have to go through every planet meticulously and get everything. This, frankly, isn't fun. I hate playing games, then stopping every 2 seconds to pull up a guide. But I hate looking at locked achievements more. So I started by getting every seed I needed for the terrarium, as they all need time to grow. Once I did that, I just started methodically going through the worlds, finding everything I missed. I would need every collectible and power-up while exploring every inch of all 5 planets. I started in Bogano, getting all the collectibles and the data disk achievement for finding all of Cordova's logs. After that, I went to Ilum and did the same thing, including one that was very well hidden. Then I went back to Dathomir, and you know the rest. But while I was doing that, I maxed out my skill tree for another achievement. Then it was Kashik's turn, which left me with Zepho. I will say, through all of this, the map was a huge help, as it gives you percentages in different areas so you know where you have to look. Then you just cross-reference what collectibles you have in the area, and you're done. So, no fun, but better than running around aimlessly. I unlocked all of BD8's stims first for another achievement. Then, I went exploring to get everything to 100%. Also, if you're struggling in the first tomb, flick these switches. Trust me. I finally found the last 2 collectibles, which were right next to each other, and that was it. I had finally 100%ed Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order for my 45th 100%. This was a heck of a journey, but a lingering thought kept creeping through my head. I did this on easy mode. How far have I really come? In other words, I wasn't done. I needed to prove to myself that I could handle a greater challenge, that I had improved since my first trip to Dathomir. So, I started another game on Jedi Master, or the normal difficulty. And this was actually a lot of fun. While I did die in some tricky spots, I also knew where the upgrades were, which evened the odds a bit. Where I noticed the most improvement was the boss battles. I rolled through the Ninth Sister and took down Malicos only using 3 stims. Even in the Inquisitor's Palace, where they threw everything at me, I was holding my own. The exception to this was Trilla, who reminded me just how hard this game was. Even though I had 10 stims, she would strike me down if I lost focus for a second. I was stuck on Trilla for hours, getting close on some attempts and just shut out on others. But I had improved. I'd learned from all my failures, and by the skin of my teeth, beat her. This felt amazing. Even though there wasn't an achievement for it, I felt like I had accomplished something meaningful. Something I wouldn't have dreamed of even trying at the beginning of my journey. Even though there were sure to be failures ahead, I wasn't scared anymore, because failure isn't the end. It's a necessary part of the path. And that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe and check out the playlist for other episodes. And let me know in the comments if you think I should take on Jedi Survivor at some point. But until then, I'm Sergeant Dutch, and I 100% games.